I'd like to just introduce this motion that, of course, I will be supporting, Mr. Speaker, and that we're asking the House agree with many Canadians and the International Energy Agency that there's grave concern with the impacts of a 2 degrees rise in global average temperatures, to condemn the House the lack of effective action by successive federal governments since 1998 to address emissions, meet our Kyoto commitments, and finally to call on the government to immediately table its federal climate adaptation plan. So that is the motion, Mr. Speaker. I wanted to add some my personal, I guess, experiences and the relevance to this topic before I get into spelling out some of the what I would call government inaction, and then what the New Democrats stay on this position in terms of what we'd like to see happen on climate change. I got my start, Mr. Speaker, in terms of taking action when I swam the length of the Fraser River in 1995. It was a 1,400-kilometer swim, and I did that both in 1995 and in 2000 to draw attention to the issues threatening the health of the Fraser, which is known as one of the greatest salmon rivers in the world. And it's under threat, Mr. Speaker. It's on BC's endangered rivers list, and it's under threat from many different threats, but certainly climate change is one of the biggest threats to the health of the river, to the health of the salmon, that makes this river such a majestic river. It's known for its cultural values, its historic values, its obviously environmental values, but also its economic values, and climate change threatens all of those. And I could speak quite a bit about the 10 years of swims that I did to draw attention to the environmental threats facing our environment on the West Coast. But I want to move to my experience as a elected official, because soon after those swims I was asked to get involved and change public policy, speak out at the local level. I became a city councillor in the city of Coquitlam for 7 years, from 2002 to 2009. And certainly the city of Coquitlam in those early days was also very aware of the impacts of climate change and was trying to do its share as a municipality to make a difference in terms of dealing with climate change, even at a local level. There were many initiatives that the city implemented to try to mitigate the damage caused by climate change on the municipality of Coquitlam. Now, I also want to speak about, I was a representative to Metro Vancouver on the board, and I brought forward, and I want to talk a little bit about a specific motion that I brought forward, which I feel is dealing with climate change, and that was to move to zero waste. And in fact, I was the director that put forward the motion calling on the region to move to zero waste, which is an ambitious target, but certainly has moved us in the direction in the region going from 55% waste diversion up to now 75%, and of course the region is looking to in fact move to ideally 100% or zero waste, recycling all of that material that the region produces daily and annually. And this is a part of defining certainly what I've been involved with in terms of action on climate change and the environment, but also as a way of pointing out that there are many ways you can take action, but the critical thing is the will to change, is first of all outlining how important it is to make change. And this is where I have to turn now, Mr. Speaker, to this federal government, the Conservatives, and their inaction on this file. In fact, it's an embarrassment that in this day and age, we have a government minister who's accused of being a climate change denier. It's out there. People are talking about this, and this is unfortunate. Canadians from coast to coast to coast understand the urgency of the climate crisis. It seems that just the Conservative government that is out of step with Canadians and with our closest allies when they refuse to take action. Mr. Speaker, I held town hall meetings just recently. This year I heard from many constituents that are very concerned with the government's refusal to act on climate change. They spoke out to me. They brought this up. They identified this in New Westminster, in Coquitlam, in Port Moody, when I held town hall meetings in each of those communities. Even on the phone, when I talked to thousands of people, climate change was brought up. Certainly, healthcare was identified as the #1 priority, but climate change was up amongst the top priorities that they wanted to see the federal government take action on, and that they pointed out that this government, in their opinion, is not taking action, and they are very, very alarmed. Mr. Speaker, let's identify the Conservative record. They have been systematically dismantling environmental laws since they were elected, using omnibus legislation to weaken environmental protections, and certainly when I held my town halls, they were very concerned with the undemocratic use of omnibus legislation, and certainly attacking environmental legislation using budget bills they found very disingenuous. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Natural Resources has vilified those who oppose the government's position, calling them, quote, radicals. Now this is divisive. This is divisive and unnecessary, and it's in fact appalling that the minister would come out and label people who work sometimes their entire life or continue to passionately try to make change, and certainly on climate change, and they're being labeled radicals. This is not the way forward. This is not the way, a healthy way to address such a serious topic. We need everyone. We need everyone working together, trying to make change. This is a huge, huge issue and challenge that we are facing as Canadians. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Environment has even accused unspecified Canadian charities of money laundering and has refused to either retract or apologize or to name names. And this, I find, again, very disingenuous. If the minister knows something, I think the minister should specifically cite those examples where this is the case. Not to put out fear and to turn people away. I know I talked to, again, many organizations, representatives of organizations trying to make change on climate change, on the environment, and they are feeling the heat of these kinds of comments, of this divisive language, of these essentially attacks on their work. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister and this Conservative government has made Canada a global laggard on climate change and green investment. They've reduced Canada's national greenhouse gas emissions targets by 90% since taking power in 2006. They pulled out of the Kyoto Accord just recently. They pulled Canada out of the UN Convention to combat desertification. Meanwhile, they've given billions in annual tax breaks for fossil fuel companies and have failed to monitor or regulate their emissions. Conservative inaction on climate change is costing Canada jobs. The U.S. has again delayed approval for Keystone XL project due to further climate change analysis. The European Union has plans to put a carbon penalty on Canada's unconventional oil and gas products because it has higher emissions than traditional fossil fuels. These decisions are the result of a Canadian government's failure and inaction. Despite promises to have the oil and gas regulations in place by 2010, there are still no regulations. Mr. Speaker, cuts to environmental protections include gutting the Fisheries Act, weakening protections for endangered species, muzzling and firing scientists, defunding critics like the National Roundtable on the Environment and Economy. Mr. Speaker, let's not forget that it's been over 6 months since Justice Cohen released his landmark report on the sustainability of Fraser River sockeye. The government has not said one word about whether it will implement Justice Cohen's 75 recommendations. Again, I talked about the Fraser River, one of the key rivers in British Columbia. It's a Canadian National Heritage River, and here's a series of recommendations the government spent $26 million on, and they haven't said a word after half a year. Mr. Speaker, this is abysmal, and this is not the record that I support, but I'm glad that we have this motion forward. I'm happy to support this motion, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.